going on, guys? My name is Tommy. Welcome back to the channel. With no further pomp and circumstance, I hope you all are doing well. Playtest gunslinging today in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. We are here to talk all about it. Remember, if you're liking what you're seeing, to like, subscribe, and ding the bell. And remember that support on Patreon will help me in this trying time, because we're making videos about gunslingers and guns and other things that are going to get these videos freaking demonetized. Enough rambling. Let's hit it. Okie dokie. So I'm probably going to make a lot of videos in 2nd edition for this playtest because there's a lot of things you can do with this stuff, and it's all just really neat, really interesting, and it feels pretty darn unique. Here at the outset, I have a lot of general thoughts about specifically the gunslinger, but we won't worry about that right now. The goal of this build is to build a very good ranged character that has a lot of tech in it. A lot of tech that I wasn't expecting to see coming into this. Thought about doing crossbow things. I have some more thoughts at the end of the video about what you could also do with this theoretically. But for now, let's just dive right in. Today's ancestry will be the goblin, in particular the razor tooth goblin, just in case they get up in your face while you're holding that firearm and you need to have a melee option. This, and my opinion on it, may very well change with the advent of the bayonet, but since we don't have that right now, seems like a pretty good choice. Take whatever you want for your background, it's not important today, but dexterity and intelligence are the skills you want to buff. Gunslinger buffs your dex, and for the way to date, we are building a sniper. In case you missed it when we talked about it before, and gosh, in case you missed the fact that guns are coming out in 2nd edition, follow this card. We'll begin play with a free action, one shot, one kill. If you roll stealth for initiative on your first turn, the strike you make does an additional d6 precision, which goes up as you level. We are choosing the goblin because the goblins are a little more on the stealthy side. And so, of course, we want our starting ability scores to be a strength of 12, so our bite's okay, and because, like, bulk may be a thing for this character. A dex of 18, a con of 12, an int of 14, wisdom of 10, and charisma of 12. To dive right into this one, at level 1, we will take Firearm Ace. I feel like all the gunslingers are taking this at first. When you're wielding a firearm and interact to reload, you gain a +2 circumstance bonus to the damage on your next strike with the firearm. If the firearm is simple, increase the damage dice for the attack by 1 step, which is nuts for the pistoleros. For us, since I imagine most of the time we're gonna want that arquebus, which I still think I'm pronouncing wrong. Somebody in the comments yell at me about mispronouncing the, I think, Portuguese word, I forget. But the +2 to damage on something that is not adding an ability score modifier to damage is, well, pretty darn important. Of course, you have to make the attack to do the thing. That makes total sense to me. At level 2, something I didn't think I was taking on my sniper of all things, but the class really wants you to take it. The feats feed into it so well. We will be grabbing an Alchemist's Dedication. This gets you trained in bombs and crafting, as well as an Alchemist class DC. You get infused reagents, you get formulas and alchemical crafting, and free items in your daily prep, because really this is just going to feed a lot of the things we will be doing. Namely, at level 4, Alchemical Shot. A very, very importantly worded feat because, oh man, we almost built around that Alchemist crossbow from Fall of Plaguestone. For 2 actions, if you have an Alchemical Bomb worn or in one hand and are wielding a loaded firearm, god, we came so close. You interact to retrieve the bomb, if it's, say, on a bandolier, pour it onto your ammo, consuming the bomb, then strike. The strike deals damage of the same type as the bomb, so your Alchemist Fire does fire damage now, with an additional d6 persistent damage on top. If the strike fails, you take a d6 damage of the same type as the bomb and the firearm misfires, which is scary. You could almost be a Charhide goblin to protect yourself from that, and there's the goblin memes. Side note, I'm just gonna throw this here so everyone hears it. Y'all see that life-size goblin thing that WizKids is putting out? I'll give you Patreon at the highest tier for life if you buy me that. I'm not even kidding. I thought I wanted to mount a mind flayer on my wall. Nah, I want that. I want to watch my cat climb up on that and, like, put a cat bed in the goblin's hands and sleep in it. And then, of course, watch Achilles tear it apart. But that's a different story, isn't it? Speaking of which, if a firearm misfires, you have to spend an action to clear the jam before you can reload and fire again, which puts us down in action, but is also why the Alchemist Dedication is pretty neat here. Because worst case, you could just like abandon the gun for the encounter and start throwing bombs at people, or Mr. Toothy Goblin go bite things. Once again, seems like we have a lot of options. Doubling down on being an alchemist, Shattering Shot next for a single action. Interact to draw a bomb, regrip your weapon, throw a bomb to the corner of a square within your firearm's first range increment. Now, this one says you could use a crossbow, so that's weird wording. Also, suddenly the bombs have much bigger range increments out there. Neato. All creatures in a 15-foot burst of the bomb take splash damage equal to the amount of precision damage one shot, one kill deals. Expert and Master Alchemy right behind this to continue to fuel your options and your gun that's shooting grenades you're throwing. That feels very gunslingery, if nothing else. But of course, since you can't take Master Alchemy until level 12, at level 10, we'll take something else. Grit and Tenacity. Once per hour, if you fail a fort or will, you can in fact re-roll the triggering save with a +2 circumstance bonus. You know, so you don't accidentally get mind controlled and start shooting the wizard. That would be bad. Doubly so if you do it with this next feat. Holy crap, Dance of Thunder. For 3 actions once per minute, if you're wielding a loaded firearm or crossbow and you're not fatigued, use any of the following actions you choose in any order. Step, strike against the target within your firearm's first range increment, and interact to reload. If you attempt to strike and it succeeds, you can repeat these 3 actions again in any order. If you attempted to strike in the second set and succeed, you can repeat the actions one last time. After using Dance of Thunder, you become fatigued for a minute. At first glance, that's a lot of actions all over the place. At second glance, this is as good as your battlefield is big, especially given for us specifically, we're going to need to use an action to aim our gun to get rid of that -2. More on that in a sec. That said, this is 9 actions theoretically for the price of 3. If you really need to run from a dragon, but also shoot a dragon, this will do it. Welcome to the new king of the action economy, friends. Fatal Bullet after, when you critically hit with a firearm that has the fatal trait, like our Fatal D12, you deal an additional die of the appropriate size and damage type for that trait after doubling the weapon's damage. Next up, Hair Trigger. When using your initial deed when doing sneak attack for sniping, you can strike with a firearm or crossbow you're already wielding. If the strike hits, the target is also flat-footed until the end of your first turn of the encounter. So essentially, if you had your weapon out knowing the fight was going to happen, you can shoot fast and throw people off. Very good. And then lastly, Perfect Readiness for a free extra action to step out of range or interact to reload. For those skill feats, I have to assume crafting will be very important to this build as time moves on, given that there will probably be magical and other fancy kinds of tech bullets and gunpowder, to say nothing of the alchemical things we will be building here. Other than that, though, once again, y'all know what it is, player's choice. For our ancestry feats, very sneaky to help us move a little faster while sneaking. Burn It will make our alchemist fires hurt more. I really didn't think my sniper would be yeeting alchemist fires and then shooting them for value, but here we are. It's very on flavor for the goblin, I'll say that. Cave Climber gives us a climb speed, albeit a slow one, to make sure we can stay out of threat ranges and shoot down. And then very, very sneaky helps us make sure we can always roll stealth for initiative. Lastly, of course, Lucky Halfling to reroll, cause you really like it. And for our general feats, it's Incredible Initiative, Toughness, Die Hard, Adopted Ancestry, Choosing Halflings, then Canny Acumen for Will. Perhaps one day they'll give us general feats that are shinier, but not quite yet. In any case, at first glance, I think the biggest thing I have to say about firearms and the gunslinger, which I'll put in here, we don't really have any key items to talk about other than like the alchemical crossbow can be cool sometimes for what we're doing, is that I think the unsteady trait is a little too much for the trade-off one gets for a firearm. We can have the whole conversation all over the place about how first edition firearms targeting touch was too much and so on and so forth. We're not here to do that today, maybe later. As it stands relevant to us, firing Arquebus specifically as the only firearm that suffers this takes a -2 circumstance penalty unless you attach it to a deployed tripod or the wielder takes an interact action to aim before firing. Is this technically what would happen with an early black powder firearm? Sure. You are definitely going to throw your arm out the socket if you screw up firing one of these, but a -2 circumstance penalty in exchange for a weapon that does a d8 of piercing out to 80 feet and can fatal d12, as well as a +1 precision damage, feels like a little too much. I also am starting to think I might make a bigger video about this later. I'm still not entirely sure how I feel, but Gunslinger kind of felt to me like Cavalier or Vigilante in and of the fact that I feel like you could have what that class wanted to do by being an archetype, not a class. And I so wish this class could interact with bows. I realize, like, you're definitely not going to blast lock somebody with a longbow. You're just gonna, like, try to stop the bleeding, fire your bowstring on your forearm, look stupid in the process. But it just feels like a bit of a missed opportunity. Same's true, we'll talk about it more as we move on with the Drifter. If it was like a double hand axe build, throw one axe and your like battle axe that you can't throw strictly, they bounce off each other, have shenanigans. I might take a bit of a deep dive on what exactly in the Gunslinger feels Gunslinger-y, and not just like, this is real good for a ranged character. And since we've already extended it to crossbow as well, I feel like extending it at least to bows would be fair. But that's all the time I have for this one. What do y'all think? Have we rolled them up? How are we feeling? What should I do next? Let me know in the comments. Remember, Patreon is the #1 way to get your requests to the front of the line. But till then, we'll see you next time.